this week has been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
Career politicians will almost most certainly be the death of America. Mitch McConnell recently had a medical episode at a press conference that you guys just saw there on your screen, which then prompted a nationwide debate over term limits and the age of our politicians. And while this debate is well placed, obviously, the age of Mitch McConnell and a lot of other people that are actually in Congress and leadership roles is rather important and consequential to this conversation, this debate misses one key point that I intend to bring up here, is that people like Mitch McConnell or Dianne Feinstein, whose brilliant cognitive abilities are seen right here.
Submitted. Yeah, just say aye. Okay, just aye.
They have been propelled into office on a single myth that dictates the future of the American political system and was only recently upended by the election of Donald Trump. And that is the myth, or the cult, I must say, of experience. Think about this. Whenever someone runs for president, or someone runs for any other political position, what is the number one claim made by low-quality minds? This person has X amount of experience or no experience at all. Now, when people hear this, it seems plausible. If we want someone to get involved in government and to do a good job, they should actually be practiced in being involved with government. If you want to be president, the theory goes, you should actually have had some involvement in government so that you can be a good president, right? This single plausible but incorrect error is one of the reasons why America has been led down to so many disastrous paths on the backs of people with experience. Very simply, my friends, all experience is not good experience. And not only that, but political experience is not a prerequisite for good governance. The claim that experience is necessary to have a well-functioning government is on its face false. There are plenty of bureaucrats that are quite experienced in being bureaucrats in our current administrative system that are running the country into the ground, that are imposing a regulatory state upon people, and that are also doing nothing more than being mindless drones for whatever agenda the person that's above them wants to enact. There are plenty of Congress people and senators who have been there for 20, 30, 40 years, who serve at the behest of special interest and other money interests that are contrary and besides the Constitution and the moral order that underlies our system of government. When you think of the idea of political experience, you must ask yourself, what does that person have experience in? And if they simply have experience in managing to run a campaign, get reelected, and managing to be in government and vote on some things, is that really a prerequisite for good government? Because if it is, then why in the world is our government in America not the best government on earth? People like Mitch McConnell, Dianne Feinstein, people that have been in Congress longer than I've been alive and many of you have been alive, and yet our government, as many people know, it's an open secret, is still woefully corrupt, it's deviant from the Constitution, and it just does not work well for a majority of Americans. It works well for the moneyed interest in Washington, the military-industrial complex, and others that actually call the shots when it comes to consequential world events. Joe Biden's been in office for 50 plus years, and yet he is barely lucid in most of his presidential duties. Again, if experience is this elixir that establishes some kind of prerequisite for good governance, then it has not shown itself to do this, literally ever. But there's another point we have to mention here. The more politically experienced somebody is, the more dangerous they are. Think about this. If you have political experience, that means you have consequently more experience in the art of rhetoric. Because to be a politician, you have to have at least decent rhetorical skills to sway people's minds to vote for you. And if you have experience in the art of rhetoric as it relates to your acquisition of power, i.e. politics, you have experience most likely or more ways to lie to people, to deceive people, and to twist things to fit your narrative. There's a reason why when Mitch McConnell was asked, where is the money in Ukraine going? He said, well, it's actually going to the defense contractors. And people have no problem with that because I don't know why, actually. It's actually quite peculiar to me why people have no problem with that. Many Americans should be infuriated that their hard-earned dollars are going towards people whose primary goal is to finance war and enmity amongst human beings and therefore destroy society. You know, it's one of the reasons why the Biden administration can lie every day about almost virtually anything under the sun, and yet it seems plausible because they have skilled, at least some to a degree, in the art of rhetoric. It's one of the reasons why Biden can stand in front of Independence Hall in Philadelphia and condemn almost half the country, calling them MAGA Republicans, and not be caught out for doing that in the role of president who's supposed to be a unifier, at least to a certain degree, because again, it's rhetorically plausible. The more politically experienced somebody is, the more dangerous they are because they have more experience in deceiving, conning, and stealing from you. Once again, all experience is not good experience. So we have to ask ourselves, what are the prerequisites for good governance? Now, before I answer this question, let me say this much, my friends. Whenever you are confronted with an argument that seems plausible, it behooves you, it pushes you, the truth pushes you to investigate that claim down to its bitter end, to investigate every assumption that claim makes, to investigate every word that claim uses, to investigate every little thing until you have completely and utterly dissected it. I know it sounds like it takes a lot of time. It sounds very intimidating, but you are a smart person. Every human being, even those with basic cognitive function, have the ability to understand when someone is saying nonsense to them if they apply themselves. You as a human being are unique in this world because you are uniquely vested by your nature with the ability to reason and understand reality for what it is, not what you've been given as in your instincts or your base passions. So use that human ability that our founders knew that if America was going to succeed, we have to use, and confront these claims head on, as opposed to simply taking a backseat on the cognitive train. Now, as I was saying, the prerequisite for good governance can't be experience, because not all experience is good experience. And if some types of experience lead us to certain behaviors that actually jeopardize the idea of good governance, then how in the world could that experience be valid at all? The prerequisites for good governance is very simple. It is strong moral foundations reinforced through Socratic dialogue and then meted out by common sense. So what do I mean? Very simply, if you want to be a politician in America, you have to first endorse the principles of Americanism. And those principles are unlike any other political system on this earth. And those principles include a strong moral framework that entail the ideas of natural law, popular sovereignty, consent of the governed, and all other ideas which kind of go into the uniqueness of the American political system. If you find a politician who is running in the local elections or running for president or whatever, and they do not always fall back on that strong moral foundation when it comes to talking about issues consequential to their job, they are not someone who is ready to be president or who is fit to occupy whatever office they wish to occupy in the structure of government. In order to govern justly, you must have just ideals. If you don't have just ideals, your conduct cannot be just. Very simple. The only prerequisite for being president, for being senator, for being congressperson, for being a representative, for being anything, it isn't age, it isn't experience, God no, not experience. It is moral conviction, moral clarity, and conceptual fortitude. We need, my friends, a revolution of the mind in the West. In an age where many of us simply view political issues and social issues through a very superficial lens, we need to channel our innate human uniqueness and apply it to critically analyzing the most pressing issues of our day if we want to see a positive change in our society. And my friends, We have to abandon these sacred cows which drag us down to the depths of mediocrity if we ever seek to have a healthier government, a more just government in America. And one of these sacred cows is that experience is a prerequisite for political office. That's not true. Moral conviction and moral clarity is that prerequisite. And when more people begin to understand this and see this for what it is, I'm confident that America can move forward in positive ways. Term limits. Another discourse here on term limits, very, very quickly. Term limits are necessary, but not sufficient. Ultimately, term limits are a solution to a structural error, but that solution doesn't actually address what the structure is over. Term limits are like, for example, let me just give you an example. They're like finding a hole in the wall of a house, patching up the hole, but not addressing the people that live in the house that put the hole there in the first place. Because if you patch up the hole, but the residents of the house continue to be negligent and reckless, there will keep being more structural defects in the house. Similarly, if you make it so politicians can't stay in office for 50 years, but you keep getting a bunch of people who lack moral conviction, the structural error is fixed, but it'll keep reappearing generation after generation. It is effectively a placebo that addresses aesthetics, but not substance. It addresses appearances, but not substance. Hence, it is important for all of us to understand that structural fixes are no substitute for substantive change. Let me say that again. Structural fixes are no substitute for substantive change. If your car wrecks and you are a reckless driver, repairing the car will not make the car drive better if you continue to act recklessly. And this revolution of the mind will demand a higher standard, a higher breed, a higher kind, a politician that, forget age, will be grounded on ideals that will allow them, that would compel them to do things that term limits themselves are meant to make them do. For example, if we want less corrupt politicians, and we believe that term limits will help that, which, by the way, it won't. It's supposed to do that, but it won't. Having someone with the right moral convictions and having a mechanism to recall them if they don't have those convictions ready and they don't practice them is far more effective than merely fixing the system they exist in. This is a people problem, not a system problem. And many of us have a very systemic way of thinking in the sense that many of us consider what is immediately evident in front of us as opposed to what lies beneath the surface. We have to consider what lies beneath the surface if we wish to fix the curse of career politicians that have unfortunately infected the American system, if we wish to overthrow the old world ideas that unfortunately govern our political system and replace them with the new world ideas that were indicated in that 1776 moment in the milieu of our constitutional founding generation. That is my goal, and that should be the aspiration of every American. Oh, it's also very simple by this. It is an idea from the old world that only those that are practiced and well studied in the art of power are those who have the right to possess power. And I merely say this to that statement. Power is a tool that is neutral, morally neutral. Power is neither good nor bad, it is neutral. But it assumes the image and the condition of the person who wields it. And if we've already established that people with excessive experience with power have more ways to abuse that power, ask yourself this question. Would you rather have someone who is an infant in power, inexperienced and new to it, who just got started and who has the ability to have fresh convictions, or someone who has been practicing power for decades upon end, who have more ways, as Chuck Schumer said, 6 ways from Sunday, to screw you and those you love? My friends, I love you guys so much. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.